Thank you, Chris. It's really an honor to be on the same podium as a hero like Matt Ho, who, like so many heroes, is as humble in his appreciation of himself as he is audacious in acting on the humble principles that he perceived. It's also a fabulous honor to be introducing Joe Sacco. When I was a kid, there was a musical record that I used to listen to about a creature called a chirkendoose, half chicken, turkey, duck, and goose. Well, Joe Sacco is a multimedia explosion unto himself. He's a novelist, he's a cartoonist, he is a journalist, and he is a historian. He goes to chronicle and capture the present, but he understands that the past is never absent. And his message and his techniques are defining not only the future of the profession of journalism, but in many ways the future of the world. Joe and Matt both show us why that innocuous sounding, quote, principle of force projection, the Kissingerian idea that so dominated the second half of the 20th century, is not quite as dead as it needs to be, but it certainly needs to be. Both of these men show us what it means to be the forces projected. Let me suggest two defining things about what I call the visiting team in warfare. Number one, they almost never know who the good guys are from the bad guys. And that includes the, quote, good guys that they take on board to identify the good guys for them. So that frequently we are carrying out missions that are actually somebody else's agenda. And the people whom we are killing are not our enemies, until, of course, we kill them, and then they and their families and their clans and their tribes and their countrymen become our enemies for very good and bloody reasons. The other defining thing about being the visiting team is that you're the guys who are going to leave. And to an unstable society, that's a really crucial point. Who are you going to ally yourself to? The people who are someday going to be absent, or the people who are always going to be there, capable and perhaps motivated to kill you? Obviously, the visiting team loses. Let's face it, it's the 21st century. The visiting team cannot win in war. This is not to say the home team wins, but it does say that the home team, for reasons of the technology of weapons that ever increase the portability of firepower and ever re-empower ever smaller units to create ever greater levels of havoc, but also even more because of the communications environment of the 21st century. Think about how important control of communication was to the whole era of imperialism. The victims of imperialism literally never knew what was going to hit them until it arrived. They lived in a communications blackout. The countrymen of the imperial forces almost never learned what was being done in their names because it was far away and mostly an official state secret. But people like Matthew Ho and Joe Sacco show that today's communications mean that everybody, victims and victimizers, survivors and the wounded, know what happened, know who was responsible for what happened, know the consequences of what happened, and make their judgments accordingly. Joe Sacco's investigation of a 60-year-old war crime in Gaza unearthed a past that was completely alive in the present of Gaza. He used the techniques of journalism, of art, of cinematography to do the journalist's job. Bring back what's there and put it in your face. He's done a magnificent job of this, transporting readers and viewers to the chaos and cruelty of the Balkans in the 1990s and to the unending cycle of violence and oppression in the Middle East. He does it in a new way that attracts new readers and viewers, many of whom wouldn't read a prose book, don't trust radio and television, but they'll read a comic book. And they read this comic book and come away knowing a lot about the limitations of even the sole superpower to project its force beyond its own borders, knowing the consequences that the people on the ground absorb every minute and hour of every day. Joe's got a unique background, born in Malta, one of the most unique places I've certainly ever been, raised in Australia, educated in the Western United States. He got a fine professional U.S. journalism education and rejected it because he didn't want to be a professional, he wanted to be a journalist. He didn't want a career path, he wanted to find out what was out there and bring it back alive, as Frank Buck used to do. We all benefit from this, but we also bear a responsibility, not just to enjoy works like The Fixer, like Safe Area Gorazda, like Palestine, and like the brilliant footnotes in Gaza, but to act on what we learn in those books, to act as if we know the limitations and the predictability of unsuccess of our forced projections overseas, and to absorb the petty cruelties, the quotidian war crimes to which we associate ourselves in projecting force overseas. It's a new world, and for journalists, a frightening one. But Joe Sacco demonstrates what one guy with the determination to bring back what's there and put it in your face can do. His techniques are new, the results are entertaining and exciting, but the consequences for all of us will be exactly what we choose to make of them. Let's welcome Joe Sacco.